This is Jan, and I'm a book reviewer for KiwiBox.com, and I'm speaking with author Todd Walton, who's written Buddha in a Teacup. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Okay, so I'll get into my first question. Your website says you've been writing for a long time, since the first grade.
Yep.
How did you get into writing professionally?
I actually started writing stories for a little magazine in Santa Cruz in the early 70s, and I wasn't paid for those stories, but I had always wanted to publish stories, so I just started sending them stuff, and they started to publish them. And then I had written a novel, which I had shown to some friends, and one of them sent it to an agent in New York who called me up and said that she wanted to represent me. And she started to show my short stories to magazines, and she sold my first story to Cosmopolitan magazine. But I actually made my living selling short stories, and I was also a musician at the time. So between writing stories and playing music, I was able to make a living. And then in 1978, I published my first novel. So.
Okay. I noticed that you started to write nonfiction books. Was there any impetus for the move from fiction to nonfiction?
Well, I didn't actually intend to write nonfiction. So what happened was I had written a collection of little teeny essays about how I take care of myself, which ultimately became the book Open Body, which is about creating your own yoga. And some friends of mine had been asking, about the exercises I did and how I took care of myself, because as we were all getting older, people were getting creaky and sore, and they wanted to know what I was doing to stay in shape. So I made a little booklet for some friends as a Christmas gift, and one of them gave it to a literary agent who called me and said, if you could expand this, maybe we could make it in, maybe we could sell it as a book. So I did that. And then I had been teaching creative writing workshops, and in working with writers, I had invented a whole bunch of writing exercises specifically for different challenges that writers had. So if someone, say, had trouble with the length of their sentences, they were writing really long sentences, I would make up an exercise in which they used little sentences. And then I came up with a whole bunch of exercises, dozens and dozens, working with different people. And over the years, people would call me and say, can I get those writing exercises? And I didn't have them really codified or written down. So finally, after a lot of people asking me for years, I put together this collection of writing exercises called The Writer's Path. I do write essays, which are sort of personal experiences, but I tend to fictionalize almost everything I write. I can't seem to help just changing reality a little bit to make it more interesting to me.
But what inspired you to write Buddha in a Teacup?
There weren't very many contemporary stories that illustrated some of the ideas of the Buddha. So what I thought I would do was see if I could read about some aspect of Buddhism, for instance, forgiveness, and then just let a story come up out of that, meditate on that idea and see if a story would come, and they started to. So I would write a story, and then I would make 3 or 4 or 10 copies of it and send it to friends and get feedback. And the response was very positive, so I started to do more of that. And before I knew it, I had a collection of 42 stories, and now I've published it.
Okay. What do you think that teens could get out of the book?
Oh, I don't really, in my mind, discriminate much between teens and non-teens. Most of the smartest people I know are young people. I think older people tend to get sort of stuck in their ways, and I think these stories are a way to think about not just Buddhist ideas, but sort of fundamental emotional and spiritual ideas in an anecdotal way. So you don't have to sit there and try to analyze compassion or analyze forgiveness or analyze truth or loving kindness or passion or anything. You can experience it by reading the story. And I think teenagers, at least when I was a teenager, I was much more interested in experiencing things than analyzing them.
Okay. What can you tell us about Under the Table books?
It's a novel of stories. That is, they're short stories that if you read them in a sequence, they make a novel. And I'm very excited about this book because it's pretty much my favorite, the favorite book that I've ever written. And it's a cast of characters ranging in age from 10 years old all the way up to 95. And they all live or gravitate around a bookstore, a used bookstore. And there's all kinds of adventures that they have with each other and separately. I'm also illustrating this book, so there's a drawing that goes with each of the stories. It's very much a book that celebrates community and helping each other.
Okay. And this is my final question.
Yeah.
As you said, you taught for a number of years at California State. What advice would you give to aspiring teen writers?
Well, I think the main thing I would say is to carry a notebook with you and jot down ideas when they come to you, and don't feel constrained by any ideas that you should write for a certain amount of time every day, or that you should write so many pages, or that you should accomplish something. There's a lot of shoulds that get thrown at teens and young people, and make it feel like school. And I think the idea for me about writing is that it should be spontaneous and fun and interesting, and if you get in the habit of writing, even if it's just for a few minutes every day, or in the habit of writing down the things that you see and think about, that's really the key. Because once something becomes a habit, then you do it, and you don't even think about it. And so I think making writing a habit is the secret.
Okay. Thank you very much for speaking.
Thank you very much for interviewing me and for reviewing the book. I'm very glad you wanted to do this.